So we're here and we're talking about components of divorce. Aaron, a professional men's divorce coach, and so I'm here to get his take on how emotions show up and how guys deal with them in divorce. So I'm just curious, why does divorce make otherwise rational men suddenly feel angry, reactive, out of control?
What's really going on for those men is that nervous system is completely shot. And now instead of having the semblance of everything being under control, now everything is out of control. Their life is falling apart. They're in a state of fear. They're in a state of panic and constant. How that ties into the reactivity, the overreaction. One, they're under a lot of stress of just trying to exist in this state of panic all the time. I describe it when I went through it myself as I'm constantly walking on eggshells. Oh, and it's like I'm constantly in this state of anticipating this argument or this fight that's going to fear of we're getting further apart, we're splitting up further. She's getting further away from me, almost to the point where it's like, well, sub subconsciously I'm creating that. So then we get into a fight, right? And then it's like this overreaction. And but at the end of that, then it's like, oh, yeah, I feel shitty, but now energy went somewhere.
What do you
Uh,
mean by they're creating it?
what I'm thinking about is a time where we're in separation, which is a very confusing time. What does that even mean? Does that mean that we're going to get back together? Does that mean we're done? And but I'm terrified of it all the time. I'm constantly walking on eggshells, waiting for this thing to happen, waiting for this argument or this conflict or whatever to happen. That ultimately it manifests itself to happen. Because for me, it's like, of course it's going to happen because I'm constantly thinking about it happening. I'm so worried about it happening and afraid of it happening that my whole body is just in anticipation of it happening. So the payoff for me, physically, somatically, and for my nervous system is actually for it to happen. So there's that. You add a little confirmation bias and a little anticipation, and the relief of that tension is actually not what we would choose, but it's the body who needs it. So then the conflict occurs, the argument occurs, the blow up occurs, fighting starts, and then that energy had somewhere to go.
Mm.
And it's not great because then I've confirmed everything I'm afraid of. Now I've pushed her further away. She's withdrawn further, however you want to put it. It just reinforces that same message. Like, I'm screwing everything up. I'm a piece of shit. All these things. I don't understand what's going on.
Kind of what I'm getting, the analogy that I have is maybe at the beginning of a really great relationship, somebody might be so scared of losing the person that that scared feeling actually turns them off and they do lose them.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's that kind of energy of like I'm believing that this thing is going to happen and I'm afraid it's going to happen and so I actually make it happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I get to be right.
Yeah, that's another big, huge factor, of course. And I'm talking from my experience where, I was constantly um worried and I was in a low self-esteem, all of that. So my thing was like, how am I gonna screw this up? What I've also seen from the guys that I've worked with is they have it in their mind about the next thing she's gonna say,
Mm.
or how she's gonna screw it up, or how she's gonna start this fight, or how all of that. And then they confirm that bias with themselves. Either way, it still leads to this same thing where there's this blow up. Blow up looks different for everybody, right? For me, a blow up was a lot of yelling, raised voices. That was mine. I would get very angry,
Mm.
and and even then, well, yes, I was angry, but I would get very loud and intimidating and demeaning, and it's like all of the hurtful verbiage would come out in my anger. And for someone else it could be a shutdown, it could be a withdrawal, it could be an isolation issue. But it's still like that's the go-to um, survival instinct of
Mm.
being in a triggered state.
And when you say triggered, right, I noticed you in the beginning you were talking about the fear and the anger, and I'm just curious, what's happening in the nervous system when guys are going through this and they do feel panic?
Yeah, so the nervous system goes into this survival mode. Um, but I want to be, so how do I put this? When I talked earlier about being in a state of panic, I'm already in that state. Like I'm in a constant state of survival mode. I'm in a constant state of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. That's where I'm already at.
Mm,
And then, so I'm already in this state, and that becomes my constant. Now, throughout this ordeal, I'm in a constant state of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and my nervous system is on eggshells. Now, when the dynamic occurs and the interactions occur, then it's like from there, the path to explosiveness is now the new triggered state, right? So it's like now it's just from here to whatever, or explosiveness or shutdown or whatever that path is for that man becomes a hair trigger now, as opposed
mm.
to a first we get into survival mode and then we get into the reactivity mode. Now we're already in survival mode, so getting to reactivity is like it's right there and available to us all the time.
So it kind of becomes the default,
Yeah.
right?
I used to describe my experience like when I was there, it was a constant state of fear, constant state of worry and it's misery and it's suffering. And I would have the occasional moments of normal. I would have the occasional moments of other things. So it's like it wasn't like I never experienced joy or laughter or happiness or any of that in it, but they were very few and far in between.
Mm,
And then the idea or the feeling of being normal would come every once in a while, as opposed to if we think of like when our nervous system is regulated and at a what we would describe as normal. um, I will occasionally get triggered into
hmm
a survival mode. I will occasionally get, which is normal. Like it's like, yeah, this is here, and then now every once in a while you're going up there into the survival mode because that's what occurs. We get into arguments. We get into, I mean, you can pick somebody in your family, whether it's your wife, your partner, your girlfriend, or even your children, that interactions can produce this like, oh, I went from just normal to now I'm in this state. Well, it's like, well, now during this separation, during this state of fear, it's like now I'm like always there. I am constantly there. And
mm.
then occasionally I'll get some relief to that.
So kind of what I hear you saying is, in our normal lives, it's fairly normal for us to go into these survival states, but then we come back out of them, right? We get into a fight, we get into an accident, something happens that's really hard, but it's acute, it's short term. And what makes divorce different is like there's no real relief. There's no way to kind of like shut it off without support, right?
Right.
Um, is that it? Is it like when we think about the anger that men experience during divorce, is it actually anger or is there something else underneath?
Oh, there's going to be a whole bunch of things underneath, right? And anger is probably the emotion that's front and center to protect you from everything that is behind it, right?
Mm.
Um, so
So
this,
anger's here to protect.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So from what I've seen, anger comes out to protect the shame. It comes out to protect the sadness. It comes out to protect the grief.
Mm.
It comes out to protect um the fear of the unknown, and that's really what we're facing is like, well, I know this more than I know anything else, this connection, this dynamic, this life that I have told myself was going to be with my partner,
Mm-hmm.
with my wife, with my you know the more from my experience, more than half of my life has been with this person. This is what I know. And so the idea of that not being a thing anymore becomes a like, okay, well, now here's the unknown, and regardless of whether you chose it or not, here you are. And so it's like, yeah, so fear, it's protecting fear
Okay.
and everything else that's behind it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I heard you say shame, I heard you say fear, I heard you say sadness, and kind of like a whole host of emotions that are living behind the anger,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Do you see patterns in when these things show up in divorce? What are some common triggers for men to have these emotional responses?
Unfortunately, one of the, you can take any part of the divorce process, like the actual paperwork, the actual negotiations, the actual back and forth, may very potentially with lawyers or mediators or whatever it is. That can be a big one, right? For a lot of us men, it's about money. We
Hmm.
have attached a fear around financial stability, like this divorce is going to ruin me financially, kind of a thing. It's an unfortunate stereotype that tends to be true. I hear about it a lot in the guys that I work with. And for
Yeah.
myself, I was very terrified of my financial situation coming out of divorce. And so those become very easy triggering topics. I mean, if I take a guy who is right there, right at the, the forefront beginning of, looks like we're getting separated, or she asked for a separation, or she asked for a divorce, he's gonna already probably have convinced himself that he's going to be financially ruined,
Mm.
that he's gonna have a very poor quality of life after the financial impact, and that she's gonna take the kids away from him. Right. Just across the board. This is what we're afraid of. Like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna lose my kids, I'm gonna lose my house, I'm gonna lose my quality of life, and I'm gonna lose my money. And it's like, yes, I understand the fear around that. And I would say 95 times out of 100, none of those things are true.
Mm.
I will say that we can find plenty of examples where they really shoot themselves in the foot, and they make decisions that lead, just like I said earlier about, I'm in this state of fear that I'm going to have this verbal blow up with my spouse, or this argument or this fight with my spouse. So then it kind of manifests itself because of that fear.
Yeah.
Well, you can do this. It can be the same way with the outcome of your divorce, where it's like, I'm so terrified of myself becoming financially ruined and my quality of life being bad after, or losing my kids. And it can be a varying degree, like, well, I didn't lose my kids, but I only see them every other weekend, kind of a thing. And it's like, yeah, and then it then turns into that because
Focused so much on
you
it.
focus so much on it, right?
Yeah.
um
Why, you kind of said this, but I just want to ask this specifically. Why do so many men sabotage themselves during divorce, even when they know better?
it's kind of, we've kind of been touching around it, we've kind of been talking about it. Here's why so many men sabotage themselves during divorce, even when they know better. um it really, we've been touching on this, and really comes down to this nervous system and emotional payoff, right? If I'm constantly focused on, this is going to be the outcome of this situation, whether I'm afraid of it, or or it's not actually, feasible, I can then create the situation that gives me the outcome that I am thinking about, that I'm worried about, that I'm afraid of, so that I can be right about it. And so a lot of this ends up being that way. A lot of guys will end up, because what occurs is the anger outlet, the explosiveness outlet, or the shutdown outlet becomes a lot easier to face than everything else that's behind it, that we talked about earlier.
Mm.
The shame, the grief, the pain, the hurt, the loneliness, the all of those things that are waiting to be addressed. It's like, yeah, no, sorry, pardon my French. Fuck that. I'm just going to do this. Like, even though this is what I'm focused on and this is what I'm worried about my life being in shambles and my all of that financial custody, children, all of that, even though that's what I'm focused on and that's what I'm kind of now living out, that's still an easier path than all of this. That's what
Mm,
I'm telling myself. That's what I'm subconsciously convinced that no, I will sooner live in the rest of my life miserable than face this darkness and to
mm,
face this depths of what this is. And that's what I do. It's like, well, let's look at this.
yeah. And that's where they need you, right?
That's where they need me.
Yeah.
We spend 3 months looking at this, and all of a sudden it's like this outlook changes. The outlook of what's possible, what you're focused on changes. And now you're no longer worried about financial. I mean, you might have worries about financial stuff, but it doesn't become your guiding thought. It doesn't become your
Mm,
fuel for fear. It's just like, oh, well, how do I now it's like I have a grounded approach. Like, well, wait a minute. How do I actually approach this concern I have with my financial future? It's like, oh, now we're looking at it through the lens of clarity and you can actually access ration and logic as opposed to being in your survival mode where you really can't trust your ration and logic in that state. I've always said it's like I think we have people say we don't have access to ration and logic in the survival mode. I was like, oh no, we do. It's just not very good. Because that's the thing that like have you ever been in an argument with someone and it's like they're speaking in this way that would seem like illogical, but it's so off base, right? And it's like, yeah. So we want to have a clear connection to ration and logic when we approach things like how do we actually approach a custody arrangement, a custody schedule with my ex-wife around my kids. And if you have all of this stuff coming in, then it's, well, I, I mean, I want to have a conversation and I want to do what's best for my kids, but it's going to be a fight with my ex-wife. Well, then it's going to be a fight if you think about it. If that's what you're thinking of, divorce hijacks the part of your brain that makes good decisions.
that's a great summary of what you just said. It's like you can maybe think you're making good decisions, but that part of your brain isn't really functioning and online when you're triggered the whole time. Um,
Right.
so, um, how does that emotional reactivity actually affect legal outcomes like custody and settlements and court decisions? Like, give me the before working with you and kind of like helping somebody ground and come into that state where it's like, here's a problem. How do we need to address it? And like, what's that's the after. And the before is like, here's the problem. Like, fuck my
Right.
life, fuck my ex-wife. Um, like walk me through that before and after.
Well, it's interesting, like the whole, the fuck my ex-wife like thing. And it's like, well, we get into this, we get into this thought process where she is now becoming the enemy. Like she is my nemesis now, right? Because I've convinced myself that she's coming after my money, she's coming after my kids, she's coming after my livelihood, she's coming after all these things. So of course she's now enemy number one, right? And so the idea of collaborating or compromising or negotiating is like this is very difficult to do. You know? Like, no, I'm not going to negotiate with her. I'm not going to give her anything that she wants because she's coming for me, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if that's the mentality, and talking with lawyers and all that, it's like, yeah, it's very hard to get our clients on board with what it would be legally fair in these negotiations because the viewpoint is that the person on the other end of the table is an enemy, and it's both ways, right?
Yeah.
We're not focusing or talking about the experience of of the wife in this, but it's like, well, in her mind as well, you're becoming the enemy and she's becoming the enemy for you. So now it's like, how do we get together? And it's like, well, actually, what I've seen is it really only takes one person in that equation to just be like, I understand that this is what I'm afraid of. And but I also get in a position where I can make a conscious choice to stay true to myself. What's real, right? And so we talked about earlier, it's like, well, there is fear, there is pain, there is loss, there is grief, there is sadness, there is loneliness, and all of that to face here. And if you do, then it's almost like you are, and it's not that the fear of it goes away, but the fear of it no longer controls you.
Mm.
So it's like I felt that. I experienced that. I went through that. I faced that. And it's not fun, but it also isn't the endless abyss that I was afraid it was going to be. So here I am. I'm not trembling in fear over this over these experiences anymore. So now I get to show up at the table, so to speak, and I use the table as one of my um we show up at the table and it's like and I'm okay. Like then it just becomes, well, what is legal, what is fair, and what is best for the kids and what is best for me. And it's like, yeah, when we're looking at those things, what didn't get into the equation is how is she trying to control all this to get to ruin me? What is she trying to do to rob me of my children? What is she trying to do to take all of my money? Those aren't there. And now we're just like, what's fair, what's legal, what's best for the kids, and what's best for me? And then you just answer those questions in that place where now we can access that part. Our brain's no longer hijacked by this process. And then it's like, and there it is. And that's it. And then it's like, okay, well, somebody's always going to have the exception to what I'm saying. Like, well, what if this happens, and what if that happens, and what if she comes, and what if it becomes a trial, what if it becomes a court battle, what if it becomes all that? And it's like, well, if you're not regulated, if you're not all of that, then you're forcing your lawyer to deal with everything that comes up for you. Your lawyer then becomes your emotional manager when you get triggered, when you get into a state of panic, when that next very loud story tells you that your wife is trying to hurt you, and then you want to lash back out and you tell your lawyers like, just I want everything, take everything away. I'm tired of this, like all of that. And it's like, well, the lawyer already knows that that doesn't fall into the category of the four that we just decided, and but they work for you. So there's going to be a good amount of time that they spend coddling you or explaining to you or trying to redirect you back into the right legal path, which is that's their job. But now the time that they had to do that, well, guess what? I don't know about you, but lawyers cost $450 around here an hour, and they will charge you because they're professionals, and not like, and there is not any one lawyer that I've ever met that is sitting here waiting for the emotional outburst so that they can line their pockets. It's not what they're doing. They want to get through it. They want to come up to an agreement. They want to settle it. Yes, they want to earn a living, but they also have 50 more clients that are waiting for the same process. So the idea of their time being spent on you as a moneymaker is not the case. It's not what I've seen. I'm sure there are some out there that do that, but it's not the case. So yeah, you spending a lot of money on lawyers being your emotional babysitters that you don't need. And so investing in yourself through a program like mine is like, yeah, there's an upfront cost for doing this program, but on the back end, it's going to save you a shit ton of money.
Yeah, I mean, even thinking about that 450 an hour, right? Like, it's not far off before the cost of the course would pay for itself if you just had a handful of hours there.
Right?
I'm curious when a man feels that surge into survival mode during the process, what should he do in the moment?
So in all of this men's work that we do, we call it emotional work, emotional somatic practices that we do. There are plethora of healthy coping, right? Like, what can I do to stay regulated? What can I do to not let this thing become something that's controlling my behavior, right? So if I'm getting angry, is it a good mechanism to take some breaths, to slow myself down, to remove myself from the situation? Like, yes, those are great, right? Yes. And also, if that becomes your go-to to get away from facing the thing that's in front of you, then that actually becomes, a coping mechanism that is part of the doom cycle. And people are like, well, wait, what are you talking about? I'm doing good things. It's like, yes, you're doing good things to avoid what's in front of you. And that's better than what guys are doing to get into the doom cycle. And of course, when I talk about doom cycle, I'm going to talk about the things that are on the side of this is unhealthy, this is not good for you, we're talking about drinking, we're talking about, I want to say sex, but it's not, it's using sex, right? So drinking, isolation, sex as an escape, falling into the same relationship patterns as you were before, doom cycling on your phone, things like that. That's where the term doom cycling comes from. And it's like, yeah, those are bad. What else is it's essentially anything that you are doing to avoid the hard thing that's in front of you. I've worked with guys that are like, well, I'm doing all the great things. I'm not engaging into the argument. I'm allowing myself to slow down when I get angry and when this thing comes in front of me, or I will breathe, I'll calm down, I'll go outside and I'll get my feet in the ground. It's like that sounds great. And what is the thing that this thing that you're doing, what are you getting away from? And then it's like, no. And I was like, right. So let me help you with facing this thing that you're getting away from. So it's like I love hearing the guys that are doing healthy coping or healthy, I call the positive doom cycling, but you're still doom cycling. So it's essentially, yeah, that's in a nutshell.
So I was just going to say what I'm hearing from you is it's like somebody who's in an abusive relationship and they're like, oh, but I'm journaling. Oh, but I'm doing yoga. Oh, but I'm meditating. And you're like, great, but you actually just need to get out of the abusive relationship,
Right.
right?
Well,
Like
yeah.
you gotta look at that because that's the thing that's creating all the stress, not just cope with it. That's what I hear
Right.
you saying.
I like the analogy you get. It's like, well, yeah. So somebody who's in an abusive relationship in a dynamic, and it's like, well, I'm journaling. I'm going, like you just said, I'm going to yoga. I'm doing all these things that make it easier to be here.
To to actually stay in the
Yeah.
negative
It's
place.
like, well, wait a minute. Like, wait, what do we need to do to get to help you see that the best thing for you is to move forward? And it's like, well, yeah, but now I'm scared, right? It's like, what are the fears there? It's like, well, I'm, all the same fears. Like, well, if I leave this situation, then I have to face financial implications. I have to face custody dynamics. I have to, like my whole world is going to be different if I leave this abusive relationship, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, and that's fucking scary.
Yep.
That the unknown is always going to be more terrifying than what you do know until you get into it.
I'm going to take a little pivot here. What do you think divorce is trying to teach men about themselves?
Well, it's almost like an initiation, right? The initiation is, hey, you've done a really good job of living life the way you were told you were supposed to, and it wasn't working. It almost to the point where it's like it wasn't real, right? And now you get to live life eyes open. And it's not about the eyes open to the rest of the world, though there is part of that. But it's really, you really get to know yourself now. You really get to start walking through life knowing full well who you are. Because for the most part, you've been lying to yourself in a lot of ways. And you have built a life out of avoiding all of the pain, all of the hurt, all of the trauma from your childhood that, I mean, talking in a more of a nuanced way, but I do see this coming up in everyone that I've worked with. It's like the problem started way before your marriage. And it was just like that. I love this with the guys that I have worked with. It's like they get to start seeing, looking at their marriage that they just got out of, that they just went through this with, not even a year out, and they're like, that really was a battleground. That really was a initiation for me to realize what I have been avoiding my whole life. And it's like, yeah. And now that we don't have to avoid that anymore, now you get to go, now you get to go live life. This really is the cauldron of your becoming. And that's what I'm offering. It's like, do you want to find out who you really are? And do you want to become that person? Sign up here.
Well, and I think what I know and the way I think about initiations is there has to be a death.
Yeah.
There has to be a part of you that dies. And I'm curious how you think about it in those terms.
Well, yes, there has to be a death. And that's essentially what it can metaphorically say, what we are experiencing through divorce is death in a nutshell. Yes, death of a lot of things, death of who you thought you were, death of a life that you were telling yourself was real, death of a lot of hopes, death of a lot of dreams, the death of identity, death of ego, death of all of that. And the funny thing is, what I've learned, it's like it's not even so much about the fear of death that comes up through this. It's the fear of what's on the other side of it is really the thing that shackles us down. So it's like it's both, right? It's like, well, yeah, I'm afraid of letting go of my past life. It's like, right. And it's almost like an easy logical thing to say. It's like, hey, you're going through a divorce, which means that what you had before is gone, right? And so even though the person across from me will be like, I just want to find a way to make it all work again. And it's like, you've been divorced for you've been divorced for 4 years. Like it's almost like there is no avenue to it being what it was before, right? And I never step on somebody's dreams, but it's like, yeah, even if there was some kind of way for there to be for you to get back with your ex, it's not going to be the same. It would be something completely different than it was before. So there's a lot of psychological stuff going on in somebody's brain when it's like, I'm so afraid of losing this thing that I had before. It's like they can convince themselves of a lot. And it's like, but it's so simple in the eyes of the outside observer. It's like it's never going to be that again. So why aren't we moving forward? Why
Yeah.
aren't we taking that next step? And it's like, well, because of the fear and the fear of the unknown. And it's like, yeah, you gotta you gotta let it die.
So
Yeah.
what's the one mistake that you wish men would stop making?
Okay, well, I would say the one mistake that I want men to stop making is convincing themselves that they can do this all on their own. That would be it. The truth is, yes, you can. You can go through this all on your own. You can go through all of the cycles, go through all of the things, and eventually you're gonna get out of this panic state. You're gonna get out of this the hijacked nervous system. You're gonna get out of survival mode, and it's gonna start feeling like normal again. You're going to find a new normal one way or another. That could very well be like falling into same patterns, finding a new relationship to fill the void of the one that you just lost, right? So that everything can kind of go back to seemingly what it was before. So you can do that. And I've seen guys take that path and 3, 5 years later are just now starting to get their feet back onto some solid ground. I knew a man who was 14 years post divorce before he even got into a real relationship again. Like he had plenty of relations, but not a significant relationship. And and it's like, wow, what was going on? It's like, wow, there's a lot going on. And from what I've seen from the guys that go through my program, 3 months.
And
So
so,
the mistake the mistake that guys make is the mistake that guys make is believing that they're not worth the fast track
and the support.
and the support,
Yeah.
and because it's here, it's available. I want to say, I want to say, I did not have something like this when I went through my divorce. I did not have that somebody that was going to be there for me, a program that I could rely on. Fell into the trap of I fell into the trap of plenty of programs that were available to exploit my experience, to take money from me because I was in a place of pain. I found a good handful of those programs. This program is wonderful, and it's readily available to support men going through it. And it's not the easiest thing to do, but it is amazing. I'm still getting thank yous on a regular basis from the guys that have gone through my program. Just random, man, thank you so very much. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. It's from the same guys that were like, I want to hate you for this. During the program, I'm hearing, bro, thank you so much. At the end of it, I'm like, yeah,
I know what's coming to mind as I hear you say this is kind of like going to a doctor with a broken bone, and the doctor is like, okay, well, it's sticking out, but we could wrap a bandage around it, or we could put some makeup on it so it doesn't look as bad. And there's plenty of people who will sell you those types of solutions. And then there's the guy who's like, this is really gonna fucking hurt, but it's what you actually need.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, hey, I'm looking at this bone. It needs to be set. This is really gonna hurt, but it's really the best avenue. And
Yeah.
you know, and it's funny to me. It's funny because I know that there's still going to be a good handful of guys that are like, "That'll be all right. It's going to
Yeah.
be fine.
I can keep walking on it.
I'll just keep walking on this, and no big deal." And it's like, okay. And a lot of people choose that path, and what can we do? But for the guys that want to choose the path of, I do know that this is what's best for me. So go for it. Set the bone. You got it. Yep. Here we go.
Yeah. So for a man who's watching this, who knows he's there and he's on the edge, what do you want him to hear right now as we close out?
Support is available to him. That the path to really knowing yourself and moving past this very difficult time in your life, this very painful experience that we're going through, even though you don't see it, there is light at the end of the tunnel. I know exactly where it is, and I can show you how to get there.